This is Luke Paulson, the Catholic Conservative, and welcome to the news of the week for November 16th, 2024. And if you enjoy these videos, do not forget to like, comment, and most importantly, subscribe for more. A stupid vow. I'm beginning to wonder if liberals have any rational thoughts left at all. After getting over the initial shock, followed by the usual routine of screaming and crying into their cameras, they made a surprising choice. Many have decided to shave their heads and undergo procedures like tubal ligations. How exactly this is supposed to stop President Trump or impact his supporters is a mystery to me. According to them, they are making this choice because they do not want to risk having children who would grow up in President Trump's America. Ironically, they seem to be overlooking a far simpler and entirely free way to avoid getting pregnant. But practicality does not appear to be on their radar. Additionally, in what might be the most absurd pledge yet, many are choosing to cut every single Trump supporter out of their lives. After years of labeling conservatives as fascists, their newfound vow to voluntarily leave us alone feels like an unexpected and strangely welcome gift. However, the people that they elected will continue to get involved. Pelosi has buyer's remorse. Nasty Pelosi, once a key player in the coup to remove Brandon, now appears to be expressing a bit of buyer's remorse. When it became clear he was losing his faculties, Pelosi initially played her hand carefully, insisting that any decision to step down would be his. Of course, for those watching closely, this claim was a convenient front. Behind the scenes, Pelosi was anything but passive. Now she is openly reflecting on how stepping down sooner might have opened up the chance for a Democratic primary, rather than the chaos that followed. As it happened, Brandon was quietly replaced the moment he was diagnosed with the China virus, a move that was inevitable. But let us not forget, Pelosi and her party shaped this scenario, knowing full well the issues they were brewing. Now even the farthest left members of her party can see the result of their handiwork, with Pelosi left wondering how it all went so wrong. Even Bernie Sanders understands the problem. Bernie Sanders sees the problem.
Why, even a broken clock is right 2 or 3 times a day.
And it seems like Bernie Sanders has finally seen the light. Sort of. Sanders is now speaking out on an issue that has left the Democratic Party in shambles: the abandonment of the working class in favor of wokeness. For years, Democrats held strong among working class voters, yet in recent elections, communities along the Mexican border, primarily Latino, have shifted toward Trump. The fake news would have you believe this shift was due to some form of misogyny or other imaginary ism. But the truth is far simpler. It is about safety. Being first-hand witnesses to the consequences of unregulated borders, they know exactly what is at stake. Sanders, for once, has pointed out that the Democrats' obsession with woke ideology has led them away from the core values and concerns of ordinary Americans. In the end, even Bernie Sanders can see that real issues, not slogans, drive voters' choices. So let us look at those results. Looking at the results, with President Trump's allies placing poll watchers at voting sites nationwide, Brandon's vote count dropped significantly, 13 million fewer votes than in the previous election. According to Charlie Kirk, if the popular vote had determined the outcome under the Interstate Compact to allocate electoral votes accordingly, President Trump would have taken all but 3, arguably only 2, states. Nebraska, one exception, has its own approach, splitting its electoral votes rather than following the winner-take-all model used by most states. In Virginia, most counties turned red, though a few densely populated blue areas skewed the state's overall vote. New Hampshire, meanwhile, was far more mixed and could genuinely have gone either way, showing just how close some states were. President Trump won both the popular vote and the Electoral College. Thankfully, our Electoral College system prevents a candidate from simply focusing on big states to win, preserving a balance that represents the voices of both smaller communities and large urban centers across the country. And the vote of all people is preserved with a photo ID. Voter IDs work. Let me start by saying I am no legal scholar, but the voter ID requirements across the country reveal a curious pattern. In the 24 states where a voter ID is mandatory to vote, cackling Kamala only won 2. while President Trump secured a resounding 22. Then there are 11 states that require a non-photo ID to cast a vote. Cackling Kamala won 4, while Trump won 7. However, there are 15 states, as well as DC, where no ID is required at all. Cackling Kamala took 14, leaving only 2 for President Trump.
There's something awfully screwy going on around here.
Now look at the map on the screen. You will see that states with stricter ID laws tended toward President Trump, while those without ID requirements leaned heavily in favor of cackling Kamala. Despite all the talk about ID laws being prohibitive, the truth is that minorities have no trouble obtaining an ID. A photo ID is necessary for countless everyday activities, taking out loans, purchasing alcohol or tobacco, boarding a plane, and even collecting welfare benefits. Somehow, none of these ID requirements are considered racist. So when it comes to voting the foundation of our republic, requiring an ID is hardly a burden. It is a safeguard that helps maintain the integrity of our elections. However, as dangerous as unchecked elections are, our state indoctrination centers are worse, ending the Department of Education. President Trump has made a decisive vow to shut down one of the most ineffective and potentially dangerous federal agencies once and for all, the Department of Education. This department has been pouring millions of dollars into the education system every year, yet we are still seeing concerningly low returns on that investment. We have reached a point where there are as many bureaucratic positions as there are students. Despite all of this spending and hard work that is supposed to be supporting students, the impact has been dismal. For years, the department has achieved little of value to justify its existence. Under this new plan, the authority over education will shift back to the states. This means no more federal curriculum mandates that schools across the nation are forced to follow. Instead, education will be guided by state-level mandates, allowing local governments to address educational needs more directly and effectively. These state-level directives will be much easier to challenge and manage than mandates from a distant federal department. In other words, a man who is supposed to be a dictator is limiting government power over education. However, this is not the only change that is coming about as a result of President Trump. There are a lot of things that have happened just because he was elected. Changes due to an election. There's a phrase in Latin, ceteris paribus, meaning all things being equal. In practice, you can usually focus on just one factor at a time to see how much weight it might hold. Yet after President Trump's election, a wave of notable shifts began within days. According to the conservative side, many remarkable things happened in quick succession. First, the stock market hit a record high almost immediately, a promising sign for investors across the country. Second, the migrant caravans along the border, which once seemed endless, suddenly dissolved. Then in the Middle East, Hamas made an unexpected move, signaling a possible end to the war. Meanwhile, Bitcoin surged to new highs, suggesting optimism amongst crypto investors. Putin reportedly expressed a willingness to end the conflict in Ukraine, a signal of potential peace. Additionally, Qatar made a bold move to expel Hamas leaders from its territory. Across the Atlantic, the EU showed interest in buying American gas instead of Russian supplies, bolstering U.S. energy influence. Not only that, but Putin reportedly agreed to sell oil using American dollars, a shift with international implications. Ukrainian President Zelensky reached out to both President Trump and Elon Musk, underscoring the importance of new channels for diplomacy. Closer to home, New York's mayor abruptly ended vouchers that supported illegals, marking a new stance on border policies. In Mexico, officials announced they would take measures to stop illegal crossings at the American border. Even China reached out, signaling that it might want to pursue more peaceful relations with the U.S. under new leadership. Finally, a major U.S. company made plans to relocate its operations out of China, showing a shift in economic strategy. Now, I cannot say these developments are all directly linked to President Trump, but there is no denying their proximity. And while I may not have the resources to verify each of these claims firsthand, I'm inclined to trust Liz Wheeler's insights. After all, she is with OANN, and they have got a pretty strong track record for covering these events closely. More importantly, this is one network that is not a member of Operation Mockingbird. Operation Mockingbird is here to remind you to never question the official narrative or controlled opposition planted by the deep state. Fighting the deep state. I know I have shown this clip before, and I will likely show it again, but it is well worth revisiting.
So how do you define it?
Well, the way I would define the deep state is an increased willingness by more and more government civil servants to pursue political objectives rather than stand up for the values of the institution they're a part of. They are not neutral. They're not politically neutral.
The first step is a powerful one, empowering the president with the ability to fire rogue bureaucrats. Remember the 2 rogue Cincinnati agents that Obama claimed were behind targeting the Tea Party?
Pepperidge Farm remembers.
Next on the agenda is granting the authority to fire corrupt officials, making it easier to remove those who act against the interest of the people. Then he plans to clean up the FISA courts and curb their extensive wiretapping. Part of this reform includes declassifying documents related to such surveillance activities, finally bringing these hidden dealings into the light. Fifth, he intends to crack down on government leakers who funnel information to the fake news. Now, I will admit this could potentially be misused, but the point stands. We need to get these leaks under control. The next step is to make the Office of the Inspector General fully independent of the departments they oversee, ensuring impartiality. Regular audits of intelligence agencies are another critical point, aiming to keep them accountable and transparent. In the spirit of real reform, President Trump proposed moving more federal agencies out of the D.C. swamp and closer to the areas that they actually serve. For example, the Bureau of Land Management was moved to Colorado, where the open land actually is. Another much-needed change is to ban ex-government officials from taking jobs in the very industries they used to regulate. Think about it. Someone from the FDA could get a cushy job at Pfizer after giving them a free pass, and right now there is nothing stopping it. Lastly, the plan includes establishing term limits for Congress, which may be one of the toughest reforms to implement, but it is essential for true representation. Now, I will admit the odds of him pushing through all 10 steps are slim, but at least he is working for the people. Unlike a certain soon-to-be former resident who favored the illegals. Mass deportation on the way. Tom Homan is set to become President Trump's incoming border czar, and he is bringing some bold plans to the table. He has made a strong statement vowing to oversee mass deportation so extensive that he has even warned those here illegally to start packing now. Homan is determined to address the complexities of family separations with a straightforward approach. To prevent families from being split up, his plan is to deport children right alongside their parents. This tactic could put an end to anchor babies, children born on U.S. soil to non-citizens in an attempt to secure residency. Under Homan's leadership, the administration also plans to deal decisively with nations that resist taking back deportees. Some countries have previously been hesitant to welcome deportees, especially those released from prisons, leaving the U.S. to deal with them. However, Homan has made it clear, whether or not these countries want them back, they will be getting them. Now let us move past American politics and go to Canada. Medical school racism. Toronto Metropolitan University recently stirred widespread controversy, with a policy that limited certain applicants from 75% of their medical school spots based solely on skin color. In a blatant display of anti-whiteism, the school announced that applicants with low melanin would be barred from consideration for the majority of these coveted positions. This decision sparked immediate and intense backlash from the public. People were quick to recognize this policy as a dangerous precedent, openly discriminatory and at odds with the principles of equal opportunity. Thanks to a strong public outcry, the university retracted the policy shortly after its announcement. As of this writing, the school has dropped this discriminatory measure, proving that when we speak out, our voices have real value. However, can other actions of Canada inspire others to see liberty? Fighting back euthanasia. There is no shortage of horror stories coming out of Canada about their euthanasia program. They named it with a grim irony: medical assistance in dying or made. This program, which was initially designed for the terminally ill, has now evolved into something far more troubling, affecting vulnerable people across the board. And now over in Britain, a country with the very socialized medicine that American liberals idealize, they are considering implementing a similar program. Let us hope that people in Britain recognize how dangerous and far-reaching this kind of program can be, and choose to reject it. But unfortunately, I fear it may already be too late to reverse this course. Although, I want to end on some good news. James O'Keefe wins. James O'Keefe, the founder of Project Veritas, has secured a legal win. The company he established, but which later dismissed him without reasonable justification, has finally won a court case. They had taken CNN to court over false claims regarding why Project Veritas was removed from Twitter. CNN had claimed the removal was due to a violation of terms of service. In reality, the issue was far less dramatic. They simply failed to blur the street address on someone's home in a video. This case dragged on until it was ultimately resolved in appeals court, which ruled in favor of Project Veritas. Now Project Veritas is taking a victory lap to celebrate the court win. But the irony here is almost too much. Their main complaint against James O'Keefe, which they used to justify firing him, was that he spent too much of the organization's funds on litigation. And yet here they are, claiming victory from a lawsuit O'Keefe himself initiated.
Ironic.
It is hard to take Project Veritas seriously after this. And it is easy to see why so many of us only stand by O'Keefe Media Group these days. Maybe I'm just blowing smoke. Maybe I'm completely off my rocker, but that is just my opinion. And do not forget to like, comment, and most importantly, subscribe for more. But before you go, on the left I have last week's video, but you may also enjoy the video on the right.